of India, which is going to shortly decide whether to grant interim bail to Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, who has been in judicial custody for several weeks now in connection with the alleged Delhi liquor scam case. All right, I have with me Rajiv Nanda and Kapil Sankla, both Supreme Court lawyers, joining me on the show at this point in time. Jayant Bhattacharya and Reni Abraham are also with us. We'll go back to them in just a moment. Here with me in the studio are Brijesh Pandey and Ashok Bagria. All right, Rajiv Nanda, let me start with you. Give us the legal perspective. An order is still awaited. And while not much should be read into the obiter dicta that we've heard from the Supreme Court bench so far, what is your sense? Hearing the arguments of the two sides and what the judges have said so far, does it look like Arvind Kejriwal is going to get interim bail? And what should be made of the argument that's been made by the Enforcement Directorate, that if you make an exception for the Delhi Chief Minister, you are sending out a wrong message that he's being given preferential treatment and that two classes of people are going to be created? How do you look at it?
See, as far as the observations of the Supreme Court are concerned, I'm not there to comment on that because it will be inappropriate on anybody's part to comment on what the Supreme Court has said. But as far as position of law is concerned, nobody is above law. That's one, Article 14 of the Constitution of India, which is basic. Everybody has to be treated equally and all of them are equal before law. Now, so far as bail is concerned, in the present matter, what fell from the Supreme Court is that, look, this is a very special circumstance. The democracy is one of the basic structure, part of the basic structure here. And the elections are going on. This is a very crucial stage. If one of the gentlemen, which is Arvind Kejriwal in the present case, is deprived of participating in the elections, it will not only deprive him or his party, but the entire democracy to participate in the election process. So this is what is weighing in the mind of Supreme Court. It is not the merits of the case which are weighing in the mind of the Supreme Court, not at all. The merits are not at all weighing whether he is guilty, is not guilty, is prima facie guilty, is prima facie not guilty. These are not the questions which are at the moment being looked by the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court is looking at it is that whether the need of the hour is the democracy is crying for help. So perhaps they are saying that maybe the balance can be done by releasing him temporarily. That is why they are saying interim bail, temporarily for the time being till the elections are there. And they'll take the call again, whether to take him back or not. Because he is certainly going to not sign any files or take any decisions or participate as a chief minister anywhere. He, as a head of a particular political party, will be taking part in the elections, which is a political melee in the country, which is part of the basic structure here.
Yes, and you know, I mean, this is really all about our democracy at the end of the day. You know, I agree with you when you say that the court has not concerned itself with the merits of the case at all. They are on record to say that we are looking at this as a set of exceptional circumstances. Because there is an election going on in the country, he's a democratically elected chief minister. His party's fortunes, you know, the court didn't say it, but, you know, the argument made by his party and lawyers would be that his party's fortunes are likely to be impacted and therefore he should be given the liberty to campaign. So, Kapil Sankla, let me come to you now. Looking at the argument of the Enforcement Directorate, that, you know, if you give bail to Arvind Kejriwal at this point in time, it will send out a wrong message that we are giving preferential treatment to Arvind Kejriwal, that he's getting VIP treatment, some people are more equal than others, this, that and the other. But if you flip this argument around, and the judges seem to have taken cognizance of this, Arvind Kejriwal is a democratically elected Chief Minister of the capital of India, and therefore, why should he not be given the opportunity to participate in the largest democratic exercise in the world? Can this be likened to any ordinary case of some person politically connected or influential, being granted VIP treatment? Surely you can't draw that equivalence, can you?
Well, you're absolutely right. But if we go by that logic, every industrialist who probably has 3, 4, 5,000 people working under is entitled to bail. If you go by this logic, every politician will be entitled to bail. So you're actually creating two classes of people, the rich, the haves and the have-nots. Now let us test this argument. Tomorrow, an industrialist will come and say, listen, I'm entitled to bail because I'm running 100 factories or 50 factories, or I have 10,000, 5,000, 3,000 people working under me. Now, if we let's test this.
But an industrialist does not hold a public office. He is not impacted by the outcome of an election.
Let me just finish what I was saying. You're absolutely right. But as I was saying is, does this not entitle somebody who is in some position of power and influence to come and plead? Listen, this is an extraordinary circumstance. Today, a politician comes and says, the elections are there. I'm entitled to contest my elections. This is a democratic setup. Please grant me interim bail. If the courts are swayed by this today, tomorrow each politician will come and say on similar grounds, if not the same ground, that I'm entitled to bail. Now, what is going to happen to the Shibu Soren matter, who was on a constitutionally higher post and a part of the ST-SC community? What is good for the goose is good for the gander. Tomorrow, a politician, forget a politician, an industrialist will come and say, there are thousands of people who are dependent upon me. Please grant me bail so that I can run my business, because I need to feed 5,000, 10,000 people and their families. So therefore, the argument that is made by the ED today, very importantly, and I say this with all due respect, is this, that if bail not jail is the rule, then make that rule equal for everyone. But if in PMLA that is not the rule, and section 45 comes into the aid of ED to say that bail is not a rule, then it has to be equal for everyone. Today, Mr. Kejriwal cannot come and say, because this is not something that he did as a constitutionally and as a duty to the nation or to his people. But what he did is a part of a liquor scam where his name has been mentioned a dozen times, where his name was mentioned in the charge sheet that has already been filed pertaining to one of the other accused, where there are his own people who have made statements and confessions against him.
But Mr. Sankla, let's be very clear, the court is not going into the merits of the case. The court is not considering any...
And that is exactly
what
I'm
saying.
Saying.
You're deviating from this, from the limited issue that we are discussing here. You can...
Not at all.
No, 1 second, sir. You can discuss ad nauseum what happened or did not happen in the alleged liquor scam case, who did what. But please understand, you're a lawyer, you know this better than me. The Supreme Court of India bench that is currently hearing the interim bail plea filed by Arvind Kejriwal has chosen not to concern itself with any of those arguments that you have raised.
Absolutely
so let's leave it at that. We are
right.
not going to go into the merits of the liquor policy case and who did what. No. I'm sorry, we do not have time for that right now, Mr. Sankla. Please, we have some breaking news. 1 second, sir. I have let you speak for 5 minutes. You have to let me come in. I have to do my job as an anchor. We have some breaking news coming in. There is going to be no interim order on the bail plea of Arvind Kejriwal for now. The court has said it is likely to take up the matter again on Thursday or next week for hearing. So if we were hoping that an order would come today, that is not going to happen. No interim bail order today by the Supreme Court of India. Ashok, if you could just come in here.
Okay. And Neha, now there are two different things that we have to just segregate. For the sake of viewers also, I would like to say what was really happening in the Supreme Court today there were basically two parallel proceedings which were going on. One was the hearing on the main matter, on the merits of the case, which would call on the Supreme Court to interpret Section 69, Section 45, Section 50 and various other provisions of the PMLA Act. The second is with respect to the interim bail. Now, an interim bail, the plea for interim bail was pushed by the senior counsel, Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who said that, look, here I am in a very extraordinary situation. I have been arrested in very extraordinary circumstances. I am out of the campaigning game because the ED has arrested me on the threshold of the ongoing elections in the country. Now, he made that case and the Supreme Court agreed that you seem to have some merit in your argument, so we are going to hear your interim bail application. The hearing started at 12:30, concluded at 1 o'clock, but when the court reassembled at 2 o'clock, there was another point which the Solicitor General of India wanted to make, which was considered. And now, what has happened is the orders on the interim bail are reserved, but after taking the argument into consideration of the Solicitor General, the Supreme Court began hearing the matter again on the merits. So what the court has said now is that it will not be, because they had to get up at 2:30 today, because the judges are sitting in a different combination of benches. So they said that we will not be able to conclude the hearing on the merits today. So they are likely to take it up on Thursday or the next week. So it doesn't mean that there will be no order either at the end of the day today or tomorrow. It only means that the hearing on the merits, which is the larger questions of interpretation of the provisions of PMLA Act are concerned, will be considered by the Supreme Court either on Thursday or next week.
All right. Now, of course, this will also be a matter of concern, Brajesh, for the Aam Aadmi Party, given that Delhi elections are slated to be held on the 25th of May. Well, so the longer this takes, the less time Kejriwal is left with to campaign.
Absolutely. I think, the only point was that, nobody in Aam Aadmi Party was concerned about where exactly the case is headed. All they were concerned about right now as we speak is whether Arvind Kejriwal gets a chance to get out of the jail and campaign for Aam Aadmi Party, because elections in Delhi is in the 6th phase and there's also elections in Punjab. And the Aam Aadmi Party understands that Arvind Kejriwal understands politics much better than most of these Aam Aadmi Party leaders, and he would give a solid boost to their campaigning. And that is the reason why, they all were waiting with bated breath for Arvind Kejriwal or some sort of order to be announced, which would see Arvind Kejriwal out for a limited time to campaign for Aam Aadmi Party. Now, as Ashok was pointed out, initially there was an impression that the entire case has been transferred on either Thursday or later on. I think what the judges have said is that they will take a decision on this in the chambers, and they are like, they have reserved the order, so the order can be announced anytime today or tomorrow. And hearing on merit will happen either on Thursday or sometime later next week. But yes, it's a disappointment for Aam Aadmi Party, because they were kind of very enthused by the kind of observations which were made by Justice Sanjeev Khanna, and the court looked like inclined to give interim bail to Arvind Kejriwal. So there'll be some disappointment, of course.
Yes.
But we'll have to wait and watch as to what the interim order actually says.
So could it still come today? Because the judges have said that they might consider this matter in their chambers. Let me take this to Rajiv Nanda. Rajiv Nanda, what should be made of what we are hearing so far? We had thought this order might come by 2:30. That hasn't happened. The matter will formally be taken up in court either on Thursday or next week. Difficult to say really when there will be a final order on the interim bail.
See, there are two contradictory things which you are saying now. One is interim and other is final order. There can't be a final order when it is
No,
interim.
I meant an order on interim bail. Simply that.
I know what I understand. That's just on the lighter side of it. See, as just pointed out, Ashok said that there are two parallel proceedings going on. One is on the merits of the matter, and another is on the interim. Interim has nothing to do with the merits of the matter. Merits are the democracy. The priority is the democracy. Whether the democracy demands the presence of any political party who's there for even smaller stakes. The political party named Aam Aadmi Party, who Arvind Kejriwal is heading, is perhaps the only criteria at the moment with the court that they should give a fair chance, at least apparently a fair chance, to the democracy, to the people of Delhi, to the political party to participate. Now, as I just also said earlier, that merits or no merits will be considered in the parallel proceedings as and when they conclude. Whether they conclude on Thursday or it is still adjourned even beyond the vacations, I don't know. We don't know what kind of arguments will be raised by Singhvi, Dr. Singhvi or the Additional Solicitor General, or whether there is a time, because the paucity of time is a very big thing going on in the court at the moment so far as these hearings are concerned, because nobody is letting any stone unturned. They're all raising every possible arguments. So merits of the matter, I don't know. But as far as the temporary, the interim, as the word says, interim for the time being, so that maybe the order can come today. They may defer it till Thursday to consider it slightly, linking it with the merits. So we don't know. But as I said, that this is the test which they are laying for themselves, that yes, everybody is equal. Nobody should be given a preferential treatment. Nobody is above law. Everybody is equal before law, and there cannot be two separate sets of law, one for a politician or a businessman or for an Aam Aadmi. But here, maybe yes, the call of the democracy is that perhaps people should be allowed to participate, though it is a difficult decision for Supreme Court to take, but then this is perhaps what is weighing in the mind of the Supreme Court.
This is exactly what's weighing on the mind of the Supreme Court, because the judges have said so, and therefore, honestly, I think it's a false equivalence when we say that tomorrow industrialists will turn around and say, make exception for us too, because industrialists are not public officials. They do not participate in elections. Let me quickly get closing comments from Reni Abraham and Jayanta Bhattacharya. Jayanta, starting with you. Well, so far we don't have an order.
Yes, indeed. We'll have to wait and see what finally happens regarding his interim bail. But as I said earlier, that Arvind Kejriwal is no ordinary person. He is the face of the Aam Aadmi Party. So whether he is sitting on the designated chair of the chief minister or he is addressing a rally, that is not the case. The case over here is that he has a certain responsibility, whether or not the court can actually stop him from doing that or telling the LG from doing something and not doing something else. So therein lies the point that I was trying to make. I'm not getting into the details of what the wisdom of the court or regarding what is right or what is wrong, but I'm looking at it politically and saying what the implications may be in the future.
Okay, of course, you are entitled to your opinion, and this is not going to be an easy decision for the Supreme Court, as Rajiv Nanda has just pointed out. Reni, I am completely out of time, but I'll give you the last word. Where does the case go from here? The Aam Aadmi Party, of course, continues to be on knife's edge.
Neha, I would like to us to recollect an earlier Supreme Court ruling in 2022, where when the judges had commuted the death sentence of a rapist and quoted Oscar Wilde saying that every saint has a past, as also every sinner has a future. So, that case comes to mind here because the Supreme Court had, chosen to commute the death sentence of a rapist of a 4-year-old girl by, quoting this Oscar Wilde statement. Right. So that is what is currently, I would say, under consideration about Kejriwal's future and in the interim stage of the Lok Sabha elections.
All right. So this is very strictly a legal matter, and let's remind ourselves the Supreme Court bench which is hearing this case is not going into the merits of the case. They are not considering the arguments by the Enforcement Directorate about the charges that have been levelled against Arvind Kejriwal and his alleged accomplices. The limited point being considered by the Supreme Court is whether, in the interest of democracy, the Delhi Chief Minister should be granted interim bail so he can come out of jail for a limited period of time and campaign for his party. What is that decision going to be? We will have to wait to find out. On that note, a big thank you to all my guests for joining me on the show. Also to my colleagues Brijesh and Ashok. That's all the time we have on the show. Thanks so much for watching.
We are trying a lot of experiments, innovations and ideas.
We came out with a new format in audio, which is audio series. ecosystem for content-oriented company in India, which is a very unique proposition.
When we look at audio in general,